Hello, my dear students. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to learn an English chapter of class 9. The name of the chapter is The Portrait of Lady and it's written by Kushwant Singh. So let us learn it. But before that, students, if you're viewing my video for the first time, do subscribe my channel and hit the bell icon so that you get the notifications of my latest upcoming videos. Do watch the video till end, and if you like it, hit the like button and to comment in the comment section. And students, you also have class 10 explanation of English chapters in this channel, and very soon we'll be uploading the videos containing question and answers of English from class 9 and 10. So subscribe to the channel and see the videos, which will be very beneficial for you. Okay, students, let's move upon to this chapter and let us know about the author first. As we saw that the author is Kushwant Singh, let us learn about him. Kushwant Singh is an Indian writer in English. He was born on 2nd February 1914. He is a prominent Indian novelist and journalist. Singh's weekly column, with Malays towards one and all, carried by several Indian newspapers, is among the most widely read columns in the country. Means he used to write a column in a newspaper. So this topic with Malays towards one and all was very famous and was taken up by many Indian newspapers. And Singh is best known for his penchant for secularism, his humor, and an abiding love of poetry. He is the recipient of the Padma Bhushan in 1974 and Padma Vibhushan in 2007. Means he has received these awards. He was one of the editors of the famed Illustrated Weekly of India. His work include a history of the Sikhs, train to Pakistan, Delhi, etc. So these are some of the works which he has done, and he has been a very famous editor among editors also. So this was about the author Kushwant Singh. So now let us move to the lesson which we have to learn today. So here the writer writes about his emotions and attachment with his grandmother. So let us learn what kind of emotions he had. Usually everyone are very much attached with the grandparents and especially grandmother. So let's know here, is it similar to us? It is the same attachment what the writer is having as we all have. So he says that my grandmother, like everybody's grandmother, was an old woman. Of course, grandmothers are old women. Then she had been old and wrinkled for 20 years that I had known her. So from the time he was knowing her or he has seen grandmother, she seemed to be an old woman. She was having wrinkles on her face and she looked like an old woman. Obviously, she is going to look like that. Everybody's grandmother is going to look like that. People said that she had once began being young and pretty and even had a husband. So he heard that even she was young and pretty at one time and even she had a husband. So that means she has lost her husband now and she is living alone. And he listens this. The writer listens this from the different people, the people who says the siblings and the parents of him. Then, but that was too hard to believe. But he could not believe because he has already always seen his grandmother in the same manner. My grandfather's portrait hung above the mantelpiece in the drawing room. And he says that my grandfather's portrait, the picture, was hung on the wall of the drawing room. And he describes that he wore a big turban, loose fitting clothes. He had a long beard with covered till his chest, and he looked at least 100 years old. He did not look, then he said he did not look as a sort of person who could have a wife or a children. Means he was like he was a kind of person like who would not have a wife or children. From the portrait he was visualizing, and the writer says like that, I could not believe that he will be having a wife or children. He looked as if he only had lots and lots of grandchildren. So it was his thinking, because he was a child, because of his strictness and the way he was seen in the portrait, like he was very old, like 100 years old. So he thought, how can he have a children and wife? But he could have only lots and lots of grandchildren. So this was the thinking of a small child. As a child, the writer says this opinion. Then, as for my grandmother being young and pretty, the thought was almost revolting. He could also not believe that the grandmother was being very pretty and young at one time, because he has already seen the grandmother always in that in that old poster and with the wrinkled face. So it is hard to believe for him that she was young and pretty. And he also says that she often told us the games she used to play as a child. That seemed quite absurd and undignified on her part, and we treated it like all the fables of prophets she used to tell us. So whatever stories grandmother used to say about her childhood, that she used to play games, or what kind of games she used to play, what did she do as a child for her time pass and all. So all this, it was quite absurd, very unique and weird for the writer to listen. And he treated it everything as a fables, means as a stories, as we hear to the stories of the prophets and the very ancient historical stories. So in the same way, he used to listen to the grandmother's stories, but which was the fact, grandmother was sharing her experience. But it was very hard for the writer to believe, because he has never seen that. Of course, how will he see the grandmother's childhood? So it was like that. Then she always had been short and fat. Now physically he's describing the appearance of his grandmother, that she was short, she was fat, and she was slightly bent. Her face was having crisscross wrinkles all over. And no, we were certain she had always been as we had known her. And he thought that my grandmother is always like that. From the time he is seeing the grandmother, she was like that, with the wrinkles, she was slightly bent, short, and fat, so old, so terribly old that she could not have grown older. And he says that she's already so old that she cannot become more old. We are seeing my grandmother from the time she is old itself. So she stayed for same age from 20 years. Usually it happens when the grandchildren see their grandparents, they look like very old, and they remain the same way even after 20 years, because they are old itself. So he was saying it as if there is no change, and my grandmother is old from the starting, from when I'm seeing her. Then she could never have been pretty, but she was always beautiful. Then he says she cannot be pretty because he has not seen it. That's why he's not believing. But she was beautiful, he said. And she used to hobble about the house, means move around in the house with one hand on her waist to balance, means on her hips to balance, and her stoop, her walking. And on the other hand, she had the beads of rosary, through which she used to just recite her prayers and some mantras and all. Then her silver locks, means her silver hairs, were scattered everywhere untidily, like it was not neatly made up. And over her pale, means her face had turned very weak. And puckered face means again it is having wrinkles on it, on her face. And the lips were constantly moving, because she used to continuously do her prayers. She used to have rosary beads in her hand, and she used to move each beads, and she used to just recite her slogans and mantras, whatever she was reciting. Yet she was beautiful, he says. Then she was like a landscape in the mountains, an expanse of pure white serenity, breathing peace and contentment. When she was pure, she had a true love, she had good emotions with an attachment with the grandchildren, and she was very beautiful, as if a landscape in the mountains. Then he also says that my grandmother and I were very good friends. Of course, grandchildren and grandparents are very close, they are good friends. And he says, my parents left me with her. He was left with the grandmother when the parents shifted to city, and they were constantly together. And means the writer and the grandmother were constantly together. They used to stay together here while the parents were in the city. Now she used to do all his work. She used to wake him up in the morning, get him ready for the school, and did her morning prayers in that monotonous singing song. In the way of singing a song, she used to do her prayers, and she used to help bath the writer. She used to help him dress while he was for going for getting ready for the school. And he used to listen all these things, but he did not concentrate in it. The grandmother wanted him to learn it, but he just used to listen, because he loved the voice of grandmother, but he did not bother any time to learn it. Then she would fetch him all the things which was required for studying in the school wherever he went, like wooden slate. During those time, that was available and that was used for studying. So wooden slate he used to have, and she used to clean it and plaster it with yellow chalk. a day before, and she used to give him ink pot and the pen, which used to be tied in a bundle, and everything. She used to get him ready and give it to him in the morning. And then for the breakfast, she used to give him thick stale chapatis with butter and sugar spread on it. And she also went to school along with the writer. And she carried many stale chapatis, which are left out chapatis, with her to be given to the village dogs so that even they can be fed. Then grandmother always went to school with the writer because the school was just next to the temple. It was attached to the temple, and the priest taught them. The priests were teaching them the alphabets and the morning prayers for the children. They were sitting in the rows and they were learning it and singing the alphabets, and they used to sing the song and the prayers in chorus. While grandmother used to go inside the temple and she used to read the scriptures, means the holy books which were kept there. So she used to read that, and they both, when they finished it, they came back together from the school. And while returning, at that time the village dogs were there. They would meet the grandmother, and where she used to put the stale chapatis for them, and the dogs used to come and meet them near the temple door, because the dogs are faithful, and they know very well the one who feeds them. So they used to wait for them near the temple door, and she used to give them the chapatis, and these dogs used to follow till their home, growling and fighting with each other for the chapatis which were being thrown by the grandmother. Then some days, after some days, then the parents, when they were settled in the city, then they gave a call to the grandmother and this writer to come back and settle with them. So now there was a turning point, because everything was going to be changed. Now the life in the village is far different from the life in a city. So now, no doubt, both of them were together in the house in the city, but the school was changed, and the writer went to an English school now in the city, and a motor bus used to come. So no longer the grandmother used to accompany him. So there were no dogs in the street, and there were no nothing which as usual as there was in the village. So now what she did was, the grandmother started feeding sparrows which were coming in the city house in the courtyard. Usually in our houses also we see the sparrows and the birds coming and sitting. So if we give some eatables or some water, if we keep it for them, they try to come again and again whenever they require that. So that is the attachment which the women, the birds and animals have towards that person, that human. If you show your sympathy or some good behavior, even they respond and they come back. So what the grandmother did here in the city, she was not having dogs in the street to feed, so she started feeding the sparrows. Now years rolled in the same way, and each other started getting apart from each other, though they used to be in the same house. But the writer used to spend most of the time in the schools, and when he came back, the grandmother used to ask that, what did you learn in the school, what did the teacher taught? And he used to say all English words and the Western science what he used to learn in the school, like the law of gravity, Archimedes principle, and the world being around the modern and the development of the world which is going on. He used to speak to grandmother, but grandmother was not satisfied. She was very unhappy with these lessons, because she thought that, why are they not teaching the lessons related to God? Even they have to teach something about the God. So she was not satisfied that they are not getting the knowledge about God and the scriptures. But she said nothing, but her silence meant some disapproval that she did not like. And she started talking less to the writer. Like, she rarely talked now to the writer, because her interest was not as same now as the writers, because everything was changed now in the city. Then there was a time when the writer had to go to university, where he got his own room. He has to move away from that house where they had lived. They were living together. Now the common link of friendship was being separated. It was departing. Now grandmother accepted her seclusion now with resignation, means being alone, separated, because she was much attached to the writer, because he was a grandchild. But now she was secluded, because everyone were busy in their life, and she has having nobody to spend the time with her. So now she quietly accepted her loneliness, and she rarely left her spinning wheel. She sat near the spinning wheel and started doing her spinning work, and she did not talk to anyone more now. Like, much, she did not talk any much. Now, from sunrise to sunset, she sat near the wheel. She did the same thing, spinning of the wheels and making the threads and the everything, and she used to recite the prayers there itself. Only in the afternoon she used to get up for the relaxation for half an hour. That too, she used to feed the sparrows which were coming in her courtyard. She used to sit it in the veranda. She used to break some breads into little bits and put it to the birds. So some hundreds of little birds used to come there. They used to make nice bedlam chirping sounds there. Some of the birds came and sat on her legs, but she never sued any of the birds from her leg. Means she did not made them to fly away from her legs. And it used to be the happiest half an hour of the day for the grandmother. She used to enjoy this with the sparrows, time spent with sparrows. So now the time spent in the same way, and now the writer had to go abroad for further studies. First he came here, they came to city, to the English school, then to the university. Now he's going to the further studies to abroad. Now he was sure that grandmother would be very upset with this decision, because he had to be away from grandmother for 5 years to complete his further studies. And at her age, because she was already so old, one could never tell what will happen. But grandmother was not like that. She was not even sentimental. She did not show her emotion. Though she was feeling bad, she did not show her emotion in any way. She also came with everyone else to the railway station to bid farewell and bye to the writer. And her lips again there also moved in prayer. She was continually lost in prayer. She was doing her prayers, and she met and kissed the forehead of the writer, and she bid her farewell, means she bid him bye so that he could go for his further studies. And that was the most imprint, that was the feeling and the emotion, that the last kiss of the forehead what grandmother had given the writer, said that was the last physical contact between he and the grandmother, the loving emotion which he had, and that was the thing which he remembered, and he took it with him for the to the abroad. Then he says, but that was not so. After 5 years, when he came back again, he met the grandmother at station, and she did not look even a day older, because he said earlier, from the time I'm saying my grandmother is old, and she cannot be more older. So here he says that she did not look a day older. She was as old as I saw her while she came here to live. Now again, she is in the same manner. The appearance remains the same. Now he says that she had still no time for words. Means she did not speak more. She just clasped him in the arms. Means she welcomed him, she hugged him, and she again continued with her prayers. And on the first day of the arrival of the writer, which was the happiest moment, but for the grandmother now, spending the time with sparrows became the happiest moment, and she fed the birds without any importance in her life, or like she was disapproved by her life. Now she was just satisfied, as she was just spending her life. She did not have any demands or nothing like that. She was just busy giving the breadcrumbs to the sparrows, and she spent the time like that. And in that evening, there was some change which the writer saw, that she did not pray now, but she collected few of the women from the neighborhood, and they played the drum, and they started to sing some song there. And for several hours, they continued the same thing. They thumped the sagging skins, they thumped the drum, the dilapidated drum, means the old drum which they had, they just banged them, they beat them, and they, with that tune and tone, they just sang the homecoming of the warrior. That was the song which they were singing. And the writer says that we and family members had to persuade her to stop, means to convince her to stop that, because it would strain her, and she would be fall ill. She would fall ill because of the stress and strain which she is taking to sing the song. That was the first time since I had known her that she did not pray. And after 5 years, that was the first time that the writer came to know that my grandmother had stopped praying much now, as she was very much busy in the praying all before, but now she is not doing so. She is just not feeling like doing anything. She is just passing her time with whatever she wants now, in that manner. Then the next morning, the grandmother fall ill, and she was having mild fever. Doctor was called. The doctor examined, and he said everything is fine, nothing to worry. But the grandmother, she thought differently. She told that now it was her end. The end was near, and since then, only few hours before the close of the last chapter of her life, she had omitted to pray. Means now she had stopped praying and everything. Just few hours were left for her last breath, and she was not going to waste any more time to talk to them or waste talking to others. Now they protested, means they said them, "Okay, nothing, it's nothing like that, you should not think like that," but she ignored everything and at last she peacefully lay in bed praying and telling her beads. At last she started praying her beads because she knew now her time is close to go. And before they could say something, her moving lips stopped, and her rosary, which she had, the beads which she was having in her hand, fell from her lifeless fingers. Means she was no more now. A peaceful pallor spread on her face. Means there was a peace on her face, and everybody in the family knew that she was no more and she was dead now. The sun was setting and had lit her room and veranda. Now it was evening time, the sun was setting, and the veranda was blazing golden light, because while setting the sunlight was to come to her veranda, and we stopped halfway in the courtyard. All over the veranda, in her room, right up where she laid dead, she was just wrapped and put over there. All the thousands of sparrows had collected and scattered there on the floor where she used to sit and give them the breadcrumbs. But there was no chirping sound. Even the birds felt this the loss of the grandmother, and even the writer and family members felt very sorry for the birds. And the mother of the writer here, she gave some of the bread there, as she broke it into little crumbs, as the way the grandmother used to give. But the sparrows did not notice and did not eat that. They were just sitting silently there, because even they had felt the loss of the grandmother. And when the grandmother's corpse was carried away, means the dead body, when it was carried away from the house, then the birds also quietly flew away from there, leaving the breadcrumbs on the floor. And next morning, when the sweeper came, he swept the breadcrumbs and threw it into the dustbin. So this shows the attachment even of the birds towards the human, the attachment and the love they have, and even they feel the emotion of being close with them and loving them, and even the losing their dear ones. So this is how the writer trying to explain his attachment with the grandmother, and the way they started separating because of the different lifestyles, and the attachment of the birds and the animals towards the humans are also seen. So I hope the students would have understood this chapter, and I hope this video was helpful for you all. Thank you for watching my video. If you liked it, do hit the like button, and we'll be coming soon with many more such videos. Thank you.